Reddit stories. I just found out that my wife didn't tell me she had cancer when I was asking for a break from being married so that I wouldn't feel guilty and stay with her. When I met my wife, she was super awesome, always talking about everything and being all caring. We spent so much time together, but things started to change. She would come home from work, jump into bed, and spend hours and hours watching TikToks. She barely did chores, sometimes paying someone else to do them, and always said she was tired, but then stayed up super late or slept for like 18 hours. It made me really sad because she was always on her phone or computer instead of hanging out with me. I told her I wanted to take a break, and even though it was hard and she cried, I thought it was the right thing to do because being with her felt like going back to how my parents were. Then, an old friend of hers told me she had cancer and got really mad at me for leaving her during a tough time. I had no clue she had cancer. When I asked my wife about it, she said she didn't want to make me feel bad or trick me into staying. She found out 3 weeks after we separated. I told her she should have told me, and I'm really upset she didn't. Do I have a right to be mad? Am I the jerk? Edit. Now her hair is thinning, and she looks weak. For 3 years before that, she wouldn't get out of bed, and I did all the chores and cooking. She didn't want to do anything with me, just lay in bed watching TikToks for like 14 to 16 hours every day. I tried to help her, but she wouldn't go to the doctor. Doctor said she was lazy, blood tests showed nothing wrong, and she kept saying she was fine. If we knew her body was shutting down, I wouldn't have left. I just wish she went to the doctor when I tried to make appointments before asking for a break. I'm gonna help her however I can now. Update, 2 days later, subscribe for more Reddit stories. I talked to my wife. I gave her a call and asked if she wanted to talk, and she said okay. When I went over to her place, I noticed that nobody had been there in a few weeks. My wife usually keeps things clean, but it was clear she was doing everything on her own. I said sorry for everything and asked her why she didn't tell me about having cancer. She felt guilty because she thought we'd go through all the trouble, and it would turn out she was just lazy, and I'd be mad at her. When we separated, she wanted to go to a few appointments to show she was physically fine, but planned to change on her own to stop being lazy. That's when she found out about the cancer. She felt really bad because she didn't go to the appointments I set up. She didn't want me to come back if she knew, and she didn't want me sacrificing for her when she had dismissed my worries for years. She cried and said she felt like she was just being lazy and tired, like before. I asked her what she meant, and she told me about these times during school when she was really tired and couldn't get out of bed. Her parents took her to a doctor, but they said nothing was wrong. It wasn't anxiety or depression, she just felt incredibly physically tired. Her parents and the doctor said it was laziness. I don't like her parents. I told her it didn't sound like laziness, it sounded like a real medical issue. I'm going to help her figure it out, but to me, it sounds like an autoimmune disease or flare-up. I told her I always believe her. I believed her when she said she was just lazy after 3 years of trying to get her to a doctor, and I would have believed her if she had been honest about what she went through as a kid. She kept sobbing, and I comforted her. After she cried, I checked her fridge for food. There wasn't much, including some frozen food I had dropped off before. I asked if she wanted me to go grocery shopping or come over to my apartment for some food. She chose my apartment. I grabbed a few things for her and took a laundry basket of dirty clothes to wash. At my apartment, I drew her a bath and cooked dinner for us. She didn't have any clean pajamas, so she wore mine. We had dinner. She kept saying thank you, and I told her she didn't have to thank me. She's my wife, so, of course, I'll take care of her through cancer. She said she made me do all the chores before too, and she didn't want me to go through that again. I told her that she was sick and tired, and I can do everything again if she stays honest with me about how she feels and doesn't dismiss it as her being lazy. We ended up cuddling, and she fell asleep pretty quickly. She's been asleep and awake through today and yesterday. She's been a bit clingy to me, and she looks a lot more comfortable. She's probably going to stay in my apartment, so we'll have to figure out how to break the lease on hers. I'm not going to divorce or abandon her. She needs a lot of support. Reddit stories. I don't let my father give my sons an iPad. I'm a 30-year-old female, and I have 2 adorable kiddos, Arthur, who is 4 years old, and my little baby Lucy, who's just 7 months old. When Arthur was a tiny baby, my husband, he's 32, and I made a rule that our kiddos wouldn't get any gadgets like phones, tablets, or computers until they're at least 9 years old. You see, back when I was in my early 20s, I used to babysit for lots of kids, and some of them were always stuck to their iPads. They didn't like playing with others, didn't want to go outside, and sometimes they were really grumpy if they didn't have their gadgets. I totally get that being a parent is super hard, but I don't want my kids to grow up like that. Now, my dad, who's 63, is dating Shelly, she's 37. Shelly's sister gave iPads to her older kids to keep them busy when the new baby came. My dad and Shelly thought it was a great idea. Ever since Lucy was born, my dad keeps telling me to get Arthur an iPad. He thinks it would make things easier for me and my husband while we take care of the baby. But you know what? We're doing okay without iPads. We're not having a super easy time, but we're happy and healthy, and that's what matters. My dad just doesn't stop asking, and it's been going on for a whole year. Finally, about a month ago, he stopped bringing it up, and I thought it was done. But last week, when they came back from a trip, I saw an iPad box in their suitcase. Shelly told me they got it as a Christmas present for Arthur. When I told them I didn't care who they gave it to, but it wouldn't be Arthur, we had a big fight. I said my family wouldn't come to Christmas, which my aunt is hosting, unless they promised not to give Arthur the iPad. Now, they're both super mad at me. They say I'm ungrateful and that they're just trying to help. My dad's also mad because he thinks I'm denying Arthur a fancy gift that not everyone has. My husband and I won't change our minds, but deep down, I feel like maybe I'm making a big deal out of it. I don't want to spend Lucy's first Christmas without the rest of my family, and that makes me wonder if this is a fight I shouldn't be having. Update, 9 days later. Subscribe for more Reddit stories. Hey everyone! I wanted to share what happened since my last post, especially after Christmas. Some folks in the comments had this idea of accepting the iPad, but keeping it away until Arthur was older. I wasn't sure about it at first, but after talking with my husband, we thought we could give it a shot. I told my dad we'd come for Christmas and take the iPad, but only if he promised not to let Arthur see it. Our plan was to say that Grandpa got him a gift for when he's older, and we'd give him the Hot Wheels track he wanted. But instead of agreeing, my dad accused us of not trusting him and denied our racetrack idea, saying he could decide what to get for his grandson. I hung up and called my aunt, explaining everything. Surprisingly, she cared more about us than my dad. She threatened to ban him and Shelly if they gave Arthur the iPad. After a bit of arguing over the phone, Shelly even had a crying fit. My dad apologized and asked what else he could get for Arthur. I suggested toys, books, and art kits, but he got him socks. Well, Arthur still liked it. My dad and Shelly gave the iPad to her sister's kids. Shelly made a point of telling Arthur they got the best gift ever, and she was sorry he couldn't have the same thing. But Arthur just kept playing with his Lego set, not caring at all. I made sure to keep Shelly away from him the whole night. Dad saw that, and I think he finally realized Arthur wasn't bothered by the iPad. He apologized more sincerely yesterday. After all this, I agree with you guys. It's clear he doesn't respect me as a parent or my boundaries. I'll be keeping a close eye on how much time he spends with Arthur and Lucy from now on. Thanks to everyone, and happy holidays. Reddit stories. My sister-in-law wants custody of my baby. Hey there, I'm a 36-year-old mom with 3 kids, a 10-year-old girl, an 8-year-old boy, and a tiny 3-month-old girl. So, my sister-in-law, Sil, who's 40, has always been a bit jealous of me. She feels like I have the life she wanted, not exactly with her brother, but the whole package: marriage, family, stable job, you name it. Last year, she got married, and they wanted to have a baby. Sadly, she found out she couldn't have kids naturally. We were all there for her during that tough time. Recently, we had a family dinner, and out of nowhere, she says she thinks it's unfair that I have 3 kids, and she can't. Then, she drops this bombshell: she wants me to let her have my baby during the week so she can bond with her, and I can have her on weekends. I was shocked, and before I could say anything, everyone at the table started talking all at once. So, I took my older kids upstairs. When I came back down, her husband was rightfully asking her what on earth she was thinking. I asked them to leave and told her she's not welcome around my family until she gets some help. She went on this crazy rant, saying I don't deserve my life and kids, and that I stole her baby. Her husband and mother-in-law apologized and took her out, still screaming and crying. Now, my older kids want to know why their aunt wants to take the baby. Oh, and a quick update: we have security cameras and a system in place at home. No one has keys, and we're making sure our kids' schools and daycare know about the situation. We also talked to the older kids and will reinforce that Sil is not a safe person to be around anymore. It's a pretty crazy situation, but that's where things are at right now. Update, 12 days later. Subscribe for more Reddit stories. Hey, it's me again. So, there's an update on the crazy situation with my sister-in-law, Sil, that I told you about before. Sil has been admitted to a psychiatric facility. In the comments of my last post, I mentioned that her husband was looking for counseling before this all happened. Well, after the incident, he decided to take her to a psychiatrist instead. They had their first session last week. I don't know all the details, but SIL said some stuff that made the psychiatrist think she might be a danger to others, including me and my baby. So, she ended up on an involuntary hold. My brother-in-law, BIL, has been super sorry about everything, and he's kept SIL away from us since the incident. My mother-in-law, MIL, stayed with them to keep an eye on SIL, but things got a bit weird. SIL tried to sneak out in the middle of the night, saying she wanted to see her baby. And get this, BIL found her looking up how to induce lactation, thinking she could feed the baby herself when I come to my senses and give my baby to her. Turns out, the whole thing started because SIL saw me breastfeeding. It was the first time she spent a longer time with the baby, and when she got fussy and hungry, I naturally took her to feed. This apparently made SIL feel all inadequate because it reminded her that she couldn't do that. That triggered the whole crazy incident I told you about in the last post. I really appreciate all the advice I got last time. We're not moving right now, but we've beefed up our security at home and at the kids' school/daycare. The whole family is going through a tough time, but MIL, father-in-law, FIL, and BIL are looking after SIL. My husband and I are just trying to focus on keeping our immediate family safe and making sure the kids don't get too affected by all this craziness. Thanks for all the support.